Oh, it's all right. I'm sure that we can handle this situation maturely, just like the responsible adults that we are. Isn't that right, Mr. Poopy Pants?
Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad John never wants to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
Yes, it's the BJ Show, John. We're back again, day 2 of actually what should be day number 3 of this week, but we had that Memorial Day thing, right?
Was that? Well, hold on. Was that a Naked Gun drop you had, Brad? Was that the Naked Gun?
Yeah. Did you want to hear it again?
Oh yeah, I love that.
Naked Gun is so good. There's so much stuff in there. Okay, you ready? Here we go.
Oh, it's all right. I'm sure that we can handle this situation maturely, just like the responsible adults that we are. Isn't that right, Mr. Poopy Pants?
Leslie Nielsen is so good. You want another one?
I thought maybe that was Airplane. I wasn't sure if it was Naked Gun or Airplane.
Yeah, Naked Gun. You want another one? You ready? Here we go.
I'm ready.
I found these last night. I'm sorry.
The truth hurts, doesn't it? Oh, sure. Maybe not as much as jumping on a bicycle with a seat missing, but it hurts.
Those movies are so funny. The original.
They're so good. And they're, first of all, between O.J. Simpson and Reggie Jackson, I mean, can you have more iconic sports figures packed into one movie?
What was it? Is it the original one where he becomes the umpire? Isn't that the original Naked Gun movie?
Yeah, I think, and that's the one with Reggie Jackson, right?
Right,
I think that's the original one.
And it's got a bunch of other Major League Baseball stars in it as well, too.
Yeah, I know.
There's quite Reggie Jackson is in that, and I mean it's and oh my God! And you know what? What's so sad is you look at O.J. Simpson, and you know what? I won't say he's a great actor, but he wasn't bad in those movies. You know what I mean?
He was pretty good. He was pretty good.
I mean, it's so sad that what happened to him, and I guess what he did to himself.
What he chose to do.
Yeah, what he chose to do. Okay, that is John Combest. Now, I will give you an analogy here. I love analogies. For the past 22 years, if you had a teacher that was, had been teaching for 22 years, you would probably need a very large spreadsheet to calculate all the days off, all the summer vacations, all the weekends off, all the holidays that teacher has taken. But in the past 22 years of the johncombest.com site, how many days have you taken off, John?
I've taken none off.
0.
Yeah, I don't talk about it much or brag about it, but it's I just do it every day. Put my head down and get it done.
John does this site where he goes and we call it an aggregation site. It's sort of like the original. What was the guy's name again? My mind. Matt Drudge, the original Matt Drudge thing, where essentially all he did was he put together a website. I shouldn't say all he did, but it was a lot of work. Just like John puts a lot of work into it. What he does is he puts all the different, what he thinks are the top stories, is with Mac Judge, who is national. With John Combest, it's the state of Missouri. He puts them on his website, and then we take all those dozens of things he's got on his website every day, and we distill it down to 3. We started off with Casey. Casey comes in, and he does the countdown.
Now on with the countdown.
And he starts with...
In third place...
Speaking of 90s humor, Brad, bring Butthead over here, because Beavis just won a big case. You know the one I'm talking about, Brad?
Is this the city of St. Louis thing with the or is this the that's you're talking about Beavis Shock, right?
Beavis Shock, that's right. Not MTV Beavis, but you're right. The earnings tax, Beavis Shock and Company won a big victory yesterday. St. Louis City, this is the headline, by the way, from Austin Hugulay from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. St. Louis loses earnings tax appeal. Could cost city millions of dollars. Now, Brad, you've done a great job over the last 6 glorious months that we've been together on the air, explaining the origins of this and explaining the original lawsuit. Do you want to recap that real quick for people who don't know?
It's a crazy thing. It goes back to a bunch of guys by the name of one guy, his name is Jack Klobnak, who now is a multimillionaire, who actually once upon a time worked for me. See, you work for me and then you become a multimillionaire. And Jack and a couple of his buddies his neighbors who lived out in the Carrollton subdivision on the west side of 270, right there, were very dismayed when they found out that their house was going to be taken away from them by the city of St. Louis. And if you remember the fight with this, the city owns the airport, which is in St. Louis County, and the residents of Bridgeton and all the other areas where they took the houses away had no representation because of the fact that the city essentially was enacting eminent domain upon residents of the county, and the county people were upset. So what the Bridgeton Air Defense, they call themselves BAD, they decided to fight back in the city, and one of the things they found was this little-known rule that stated that if you were an employee of the city of St. Louis, or you were an employee of a company that was headquartered in the city of St. Louis, you worked in the city of St. Louis, you only owed tax, the earnings tax, for the amount of time you spent physically in the city. So if you were an AB executive and you spent, like, let's say you spent 5 days or like 4 days out of 5 traveling, which, a lot of these execs for these big companies, that's not unusual, where they would, show up for work on a Monday morning and then they would get in a plane. They'd be on the road Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and they'd fly back on Friday. So in other words, you could file a report with the city and say, okay, of the X amount of hours I was employed last year at Anheuser-Busch, I was only in the city for 100, and let's say I put in 4,000 hours, and you were entitled to a refund from the city earnings tax. And this started with, and what the Bridgeton Air Defense did was, how do you hurt somebody? You hurt them in the wallet. So they ran ads on radio and TV saying, if you're an employee of Anheuser-Busch, and they listed all these companies, Darcy and people like that, and it cost the city millions, because all of a sudden people went like, do you mean if I work for a company that's headquartered in St. Louis? And like, for example, I'll give you a perfect example. Chris Dickhouse used to work for me. Her brother worked at Channel 2 at the time. He was one of the guys that drove one of the news vans, and he would show up for work at the time. Channel 2 was right there on Hampton, just south of Highway 40. He would show up
exactly where
he would show up for work a lot of times, pick up the van and then head where the news was. St. Louis County, St. Charles County, Franklin County, Warren County, Jefferson County. And a lot of times he'd spend almost the entire day on the road. And I told her about this, and at first she didn't believe me. Then she, went to her account. Oh, yeah. He got like a refund check back from the city. So this started, this came back again when people who, and like, for example, all the people who worked at Odyssey, KMOX, and Y98, they all worked remotely. Their headquarters is in the city, but they worked remotely, and then they were charged the earnings tax, even though they were not in the city. So Beavis shocked. He had, a couple people that he represented on this? What was that the deal?
Yeah, I think so. And remember, too, that AT&T, there's a concurrent lawsuit that AT&T has separately about the same thing, because AT&T was charged and doesn't believe that they should have been charged the same tax for their employees.
Right.
And of course, city lawmakers. So 2 quotes that Austin has in here. One is from Alderwoman Kara Spencer, who just announced that she's running for mayor. She calls this ruling, quote, very alarming. And then a North City alderman, Rasheen Aldridge, calls it very concerning. By the way, writing tip and speaking tip for people. If you're going through something you've written, the easiest edit to make, go through and take out all the veries. You don't need the veries. Is it alarming or is it very alarming? Is it concerning or is it very concerning? Just quit with the very, guys. Anyway, but they're not happy because the city's going to lose a lot of money.
Yeah, and that's the whole deal. I mean, essentially people are going to file for refunds, and going forward, that's the thing as well, too. The city, their position was, they were saying, well, no matter where you're at, you were employed in the city, and that's where you should be paying your taxes, right? Wasn't that the angle they used on it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so, Beavis Shock and Company say that the city should do the right thing and actually go back and refund citizens who have paid, or workers who have paid over the years, essentially the backlog of all the earnings taxes from the beginning of time, I believe, is Beavis's argument.
Well, and you saw what the city's up to already. They're going like, well, we don't have a form for that yet, so you can't apply for the refund until we come up with a form, and that might be right. That might be 2042. We get that form done, but we'll get you that form as soon as it's ready. We'll notify you, right? One of those kind of deals, right?
Yeah. So a big loss for the city. Mayor Tashara Jones, for her part, has said that she has proposed already. They've anticipated actually losing this case, I guess, and that she says that she's prepared what she calls a conservative budget already. So she's suggesting here or stating outright that she's so well prepared for this that her budget takes into account that the city won't have this money.
Which reminds me, we'll talk about in the second segment. I'm a population guru. I follow these populations all the time, and there's an interesting statistic that came out over the weekend, which we'll talk about. Is that number 3?
That's it for number 1.
Okay,
number 3.
Number 3. Yeah. Okay, here's number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
Josh Hawley Hoffa, friend of the Teamsters. Might not be a friend of the United Auto Workers, though, Brad. You know, Josh Hawley Hoffa has been out there marching, standing in solidarity with Teamsters out in Wentzville and in other places around Missouri, underscoring the fact that he is pro-worker. Well, not so fast. There's a gentleman who is, I don't know his official title, I think he's just the capo regime of the local UAW Region 4 capo, a guy named Fred Jameson. And he says, quote, Josh Hawley calling himself pro-worker is a total joke. So, despite the fact, Brad, that the Teamsters Union gave $5,000 to Josh Hawley a while back, this UAW capo says that Josh Hawley is not pro-worker. And Josh Hawley can't at least expect the support of UAW leadership in this coming re-election campaign.
Don't you think this is fascinating? Some of the labor unions, which have been staunchly behind the Democrats, are now sort of moving over to the Republicans a little bit. The same thing happened with Trump.
Yeah, they're hedging their bets.
Right,
sure.
They're hedging their bets. They're playing both sides of the equation.
At least you get access to, if you're the Teamsters and you write a $5,000 check, it's just like anything else. At least you get to have a conversation. You begin a dialogue or a relationship with the senator. Also, Teamsters, UAW guys, all these people that are involved in politics, no matter how ideological or partisan they are, they know reality. So Josh Hawley's going to get reelected. And so you want to maintain at least some sort of a relationship with him and a conversation with him. It also allows the UAW, this kind of dichotomy allows the Teamsters to write a check to Josh Hawley and have a relationship with him. But the UAW can officially come out and say, oh, we don't support Josh Hawley. He's anti-worker. So you can really have it both ways.
John, you know what? That's the problem we have because nobody writes us a check to talk to us. You know what I'm saying? Wouldn't it be nice if people...
Well, speak for yourself. I mean, I set up an OnlyFans years ago, Brad.
You know, you're kidding about that. I'm thinking to myself, I'm reading all these stories about OnlyFans. I'm thinking to myself, you know what? That's how I need to make money. You know? I mean, people go like...
I don't think a whole lot of creators meet my demographic or your demographic, Brad, but I could be wrong.
Okay, moving along.
The number 1.
It's the numero uno.
We shall overcome. Oh, I'm just standing here with my friend Emanuel Cleaver, the Reverend Emanuel Cleaver. And Brad, he has taken a stand for something that you're very flippant about and you consistently disregard, which I happen to find problematic and offensive, which is the fact that climate change is racist. And this story is brought to us by KCUR. There's a group called Midwest Newsroom, which is a bunch of liberals that puts together stuff for public radio, and they disseminate it through our taxpayer-funded national public radio outlets. KCUR has the piece up today. Emanuel Cleaver and a group of Democrats are supporting the fact that HUD developments now, Brad, all new construction for HUD developments must be more energy efficient than ever. And more importantly, Brad, what Emanuel Cleaver is standing up for, the fact that anything that's backed by Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, those houses from here on out better adhere to the highest environmental standards, Brad. Climate change is here, and according to Emanuel Cleaver, let me get this quote right, Brad, that black and brown people are primarily the victims of climate change and energy inefficiency. So this is a topic, Brad, which you're annoyingly dismissive of. We know that heat, above all, and temperature is inherently racist. And as long as we have folks like Emanuel Cleaver in Congress fighting for us, we can fight heat oppression among black and brown people like myself. Remember, I'm 1% Senegalese. So if you'd like to share your white privilege opinion here, Brad, go ahead.
Isn't this sort of crazy time when you think about stuff like this because of the fact that there's so many things that the difference between the haves and the have-nots. For example, the haves can enjoy luxurious vacations to, places around the world, and the have-nots have to take luxurious vacations to Six Flags. You know what I'm saying? And
I do know.
And so why, can't we take the same thing and say, well, look at these people that got money. They can go to Turks and Caicos, and they can go places like that. But if you're a person who doesn't have money, you have to go to Wally World and just walk the aisles and enjoy the air conditioning.
I mean, know it is. That's a great point, Brad.
Isn't this a motivation for the people, the have-nots, to work hard and get to be one of the haves? You know what I'm saying? Isn't that the whole idea behind the American system? The immigrants come here. I mean, matter of fact, I didn't mention this yesterday. We talked about the fact that The Rock is going to be putting out this new
death of WCW.
Right, the death of WCW, which is going to be he's got a production company, and I know this is you're gonna believe me when I tell you this, but do you know what the name of his production company is?
Let's see. I have no idea. I can't even hazard a guess.
$7. Okay, do you know why?
Oh, I know this story. Yeah, tell the story.
The reason it's called $7 is because The Rock wanted to be an NFL player, and he didn't make it. He got cut. I don't know if he even made it past tryouts, and he went into the Canadian Football League and worked and I don't think he did very well up there either. And I think he got cut in the team, and he came back to the United States, and all he had on him was $7. He had $7 to his name. He owned nothing. He had the clothes in his back. He didn't have a car. Didn't have anything. He had $7. And
he went out to lunch with Jim. Is this where you're getting to, the lunch that he went to?
Right. Yeah. Tell that part of the story.
Oh, yeah. So he went to lunch. I'm sorry to preempt you there. I didn't know if you were going to add that piece of it. No, so not only did he only have $7, but he went out to lunch with Jim Ross, who was a venerated former promoter in UWF and in the region at the time, worked for what was then the WWF. And he went to lunch with Jim Ross, and he realized that he couldn't even pay for his own lunch because he didn't have the money to buy his own lunch.
Right. He was that broke. Which
is amazing too, and consider. I mean, he played at University of Miami football. He had, he was already quote unquote somebody. He wasn't a vagrant, right? But he didn't even have enough money to pay for his own lunch.
But that goes to show you, when you get into the elite sports, which is the NFL and the MLB and the NHL and the NBA, this is the best of the best of the best of the best of the best. That he was a big college star, but once he rose past the college ranks, he was nothing. Well, I shouldn't say nothing. He couldn't cut it. And the point being is, here's a perfect example of a guy who is, once again, he's a BIPOC guy. He's a black indigenous person of color, correct? He's
correct. That's correct. Yeah, his family's Polynesian or something of that effect.
Right. He's a BIPOC, and he got his, he had his success in college. After college, he had some tremendous disappointments in his life, mainly the fact that he didn't make it in the NFL or make it in the Canadian League. He's flat broke, and look where he's at today. He's a multi-millionaire. And, even to the point where, full circle, he was one of the investors that brought back the XFL. So here's a guy, who, like you said, couldn't pay for his lunch, and now look where he's at. And
now, if we were running a campaign commercial against him, for example, let's say he was running for governor, we would say, why is The Rock running on his dad's name? He's a Nepo baby. Vote for John Cena for governor. He made his own way. He doesn't need daddy to defend him in a commercial. Paid for by John Cena for governor. This message has not been approved by John Cena.
Okay, I've got some audio here. I think at least I was going to play it here. I just want to play this because of the fact that once again, Mr. Pirate Shoes, Mr. Tight Jeans. I'm not the hugest fan of Josh Hawley, but I think this is the Josh Hawley thing. Let me pull this up and see if I can get this to play. No, that's the wrong thing. Okay, hold on a minute. I may have to do this off air. I thought I had this all categorized, but I don't. Hold on, let me look at this. Is it this one here?
The federal
no. I'll
says only.
I'll save this one till later. Okay, the Josh Hawley thing. Once again, he's making an impassioned plea in front of the Senate about the pollution thing. I'll see if I can find it next break. And once again, we talk about this, you say that I'm the expert on this. I'm not, by far not the expert, but I know more than the average person because I've studied this and I know about where Coldwater Creek is, and I've been to the seminars, and I was out at they had that big meeting out there at the Interpretive Center in Weldon Springs, and I can never remember the lady's name. Or was her name, Jean Burns? Is that her name? She's the state rep.
Trisha Burns.
Trisha Burns. She's the one that's spearheading this out in St. Charles County because, once again, a lot of this nuclear waste and other chemical waste with what they call the Weldon Springs ordnance plant out there ended up in St. Charles County. It was trucked across. As a matter of fact, what's interesting about this is this was when the new bridge was put up, which eventually became the Daniel Boone Bridge. And where did this waste go? Right down Highway 40 in rich person's land through Town and Country. At the time there was no.
Not out here. Get that out of here. Send it to Weldon Springs.
That's what they did. They drove it right down Highway 40. And at the time, I don't know if Town and Country was around then. I know Chesterfield wasn't.
It was only country. There was no town. It was just country.
Okay.
I'm from country, Missouri.
We're going to take a break. I'll see if I can find the Josh Hawley thing. This is the BJ Show. You can check out our program at bjshow.co. You can also check out, that is what we do. You can check out the station we're on, which is Egbert, EGGBURT.com. And also you can check out our videos on bjshow.video, all those different websites. We're going to take a break. We will be right back.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?